with suicide rates at an all-time high, with marriages falling apart, with the stress and the strain of sequestration. The last thing we need to do is to impact on those people that have probably the greatest influence on our young men and women in the service today from a spiritual perspective, and that's our chaplains.
In 1775, George Washington appointed the first chaplain, and there have been chaplains ever since.
There's no greater joy. I wouldn't trade a day for the time that I had of serving soldiers and their families.
Chaplains were librarians, they were defense attorneys, they ran the commissaries and PXs, they wrote letters, they collected the dead, they tagged the dead, they wrote letters to home. Chaplains have been free to not only represent their own faith group, but they've been free to provide religious support.
Sometimes in some of the most abysmal conditions that you can imagine.
That meant if my soldiers jumped out of airplanes, I jumped out of airplanes.
Not only in danger of losing members of their flock, but also losing their own lives.
You provide services for them, Bible study, counselings, and when soldiers getting married.
They are the guy that a young troop turns to when he's confused, when he's afraid, when he just simply needs somebody that he can talk to.
Actually, a chaplain is the person you would go to if you have a problem with conscientious objection, for example.
All our chaplains are very concerned that if the Defense of Marriage Act goes away, that is going to be a major shift on the playing field.
The Defense of Marriage Act was passed in the 90s during the Clinton administration. For federal purposes, it defined marriage as a union between a man and a woman.
Military wouldn't conduct same-sex ceremonies because it violated federal law.
President Obama has determined that he is not under any obligation with his administration to abide by the provisions of DOMA.
Then he instructed the Pentagon that the Pentagon would not recognize the Defense of Marriage Act.
It is now going to the Supreme Court.
The defense of marriage is in the natural order of the union between a man and woman for the mutual love of the couple and for the procreation of children.
He said these two come together and become complete, and that's what marriage is all about.
And if this country decides that marriage is no longer between a male and a female, the ramifications of that are legion, and there will be trouble.
We are in jeopardy of essentially telling chaplains that you have two choices. Either walk away from the foundations of your faith or put yourself in a position where you are going to be outside of the directives of our military, which potentially could tell them that they must perform same-sex marriages.
Will military chaplains be allowed to preach from Genesis 2 or Romans 1 or any of those passages that deal with sexual issues or even the definition of marriage?
I think that you will see many chaplains that will refuse to obey that kind of directive, and you'll see them leaving the services.
Would chaplains be required to do counseling for same-sex couples?
They're afraid of their jobs, they're afraid they're going to be castigated in the media, they're afraid.
A non-chaplain, a soldier, at his promotion party for E8, he sent out an invitation. And he put it this way, he said, in honor of my promotion and in honor of the Defense of Marriage Act, I'm going to serve Chick-fil-A sandwiches for my promotion party. His command sergeant major brought him in to sign a counseling statement. And if you're in the military, you know that that's like the death notice that he would not be promoted again. That would be a mark on his record. There was a chaplain who had received an email that had just an analytical analysis of what the repeal of the Don't Ask, Don't Tell may look like for the chaplain corps, and he forwarded it to another chaplain. He was pulled from that assignment, and all he was doing was expressing his concern as an evangelical chaplain.
We must protect our chaplains and their ability to live their faith, not just preach their faith.
All of these questions have to be asked what do First Amendment rights mean, and will they still be protected